You see that? There's some happy players right there. They got the bag, but the GMs are probably a little bit more happy because they got them on a good deal. What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Eric, aka Doc, coming back at you with the Triple Play YouTube channel, joined by my friend Garrett, aka Super Mario Hoops 24. That is his YouTube channel. What is going on, my man?
It's going pretty good. Just been chilling lately. And I mean, it's always good to talk about basketball. I know that you guys liked when we made the worst contracts video. Now we're bringing a part two with some of the best contracts. So should be pretty nice. But how are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Hopefully, with that Bulls hat, you're not in COVID protocol. At the time we're making this on December 10th, there's been a little bit of an outbreak with the Bulls. So,
Yeah, I'm,
um,
I'm one of the lucky ones right now. So
but Garrett touched on it. We talked about the worst contracts and players that are benefiting off the deals they signed and GMs that might be real in kind of the course of that. But we're gonna then kind of do the flip side: players that are underpaid and GMs that did a really good job signing them. First guy we're going to go to, and he's having a real breakout season. This is Dejounte Murray from the San Antonio Spurs. Probably the face of the franchise now that LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan are gone. They're going through that rebuild. So he signed a 4-year, $64 million deal, which he's in the second year of. He's making 16 mil each year. Now his stats, 19.1 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, 8.2 assists, and 2 steals. I mean, this guy is just doing it all. So, I mean, Garrett, what are your thoughts on Dejounte Murray?
I mean, well, for one, I always knew that I think he had this potential to be really good. I know at the very beginning of the season, I think like the first like 7 or 8 games, the biggest thing I was worried about with him is like his ability to close out games. But ever since then, he's kind of like shut me up because I think he's been like one of the most clutch players in the league since that moment. So like, I mean, this seems like a guy that you could build around long term. I mean, for most of the season, I think he's averaging like 18, 8, and 8. So I mean, that's pretty dang good. And I'd say he's probably like a top 5, maybe even top 3 defensive guard in the NBA right now. And of course, he's not quite in his prime yet. So I think he can be kind of that guy for the Spurs moving forward. And he's still pretty young. So I think it's pretty good. They still got him for 3 more years on that contract, all pretty cheap, I'd say, considering his ability. And I was checking like where he ranks for current this season for salaries, and he ranks 86 in the NBA. So I mean,
That's a steal. That's
I
a
would
steal.
yeah,
The
I
pun
would I would
intended.
say he's better than 86 players in the NBA. So and he's probably around more like top 50 range at the very minimum, like or maybe top 60, but still like that's definitely a good deal for a guy like this.
And I think he landed in the perfect landing spot. So he was taking the 29th pick in the 2016 NBA draft out of Washington. And he was projected to go as a lottery pick at some point. And I think kind of being under the Popovich wing. Now, obviously, we bring up his stats, and he's somebody that does it all. I mean, he's rebounding, he's passing the ball, he's stealing, but he's really become a coachable player. He came out of college as a freshman. That was kind of the worry is he going to kind of have that dominant attitude where he takes the ball under his control. But I think he's really developed an all-around game. He can shoot the ball pretty well. He has good length. He hustles. So I think it was the perfect landing spot for him, and to not be forced right away. He just turned 25, and as you mentioned, he's making 86 million or 86 in NBA pay. So good job by RC Buford. Not surprised by that. We're going to go to another guy, and this is my guy here. This is Jarrett Allen. And if you haven't seen it, I'm going to shamelessly plug a video I made about him, about why he's worth more than $100 million before the season started. So he signed that 5-year, $100 million extension. He's in the first year. It's 20 each year flat. Now we're looking at his stats: 17.3 points per game, 11.2 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.3 blocks. Now, what I didn't include on there is he's shooting, I think, over 70% from the floor. And you can just see his game right now has really evolved. And, I'm going to give part of it to Evan Mobley because I think they work very well as a good front court. And I think Darius Garland has a really good pick and roll. But I said this was a steal at the time. He has the 6th longest wingspan in the league. So not only are you factoring blocks, but his ability to contend shots. He's really good at catching oops. He's a good mismatch. He needs to get a little bit better at shooting outside the paint. That's something I'd like to see him do a little bit more, and I put that in the video as well. a lot of his shots, he's getting to the rim, and props to him. He's shown a lot of speed. He has a little bit of a bag now. He got a little bit of a spin move. He's a little bit more aggressive. He's put on a little bit more weight, but he's 24 years old. I think actually maybe 23, and we're just seeing him come into his level. So, Garrett, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, he's definitely having a career year. I remember when he signed in the offseason, like for the 5-year, $100 million, I thought maybe that was too much because, I always thought that he was pretty good, but I never thought he'd quite be playing this level. I mean, right now he's probably playing like an all-star, and this is the first year of his deal. So if he keeps this up and he's only like 23, 24 years old, like, that's something really good down the line. But like you said, like you even showed on there, he's averaging like 17 points, 11 rebounds, one of the best defenders in the NBA. And he's kind of, like you said, he's developed more of like a post-up shot and kind of post moves as well. And he's one of the most efficient players in the league. I think this is his career high in like win shares, PER, net rating. So that's just crazy. And he's ranked 55th for current players on the payroll, like for this season. So I think it's definitely a steal, and especially if he keeps it up. I mean, and having, those guys as well, like Mobley and Garland. I just checked the stat yesterday that they're 13-6 when all three of those guys play.
Oh, that's a good stat. That's a
Yeah.
good stat. I like that.
And really, like when you think of prime, I feel like you think of guys like maybe 26, 27 until maybe they're like 32. Like that's kind of like what I think of personally for like prime years. And, none of them are even there yet. So it's like, it's probably only going to get better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he signed this deal at 23 and he's going to be 28. So who's to say like he can't get another big contract? He's shooting 70% from the floor this year. I just looked that up. And he's 23rd in PER, which is player efficiency rating. So doing much better than he's paid against. I will say, as a Jarrett Allen stan, he needs to get better at the free throw line. He's at 68% this year, which isn't awful for a big man. He needs to get a little bit better shooting the three. He's shooting 20% this year, so it lets you know he's comfortable shooting that. But the things you can't teach, height, intangibles, and he's finally getting a starting opportunity, which I don't think he had before. And I really saw that potential in him. But we're going to stay with the big man theme and going to Jonas Valanciunas, who first year with the Pelicans, traded from the Grizzlies. He's in the final year of his 3-year, $45 million extension that he signed. $15 million a year. And I mean, he is putting up career numbers, 18.5 points per game, 12 rebounds, 2.4 assists, nearly a block a game. And he's really been the 1B to the Pelicans this year. Zion Williamson hasn't played a game as of yet. Brandon Ingram has sat out some games. And he's really, he was the 5th pick in the 2011 draft. And his career was a little bit shaky to start with the Raptors, but he's really come into his own.
Yeah, I mean, I would even argue he's just been the one for the Pelicans, not just the 1B. I feel like personally he's been better than Ingram in the time that we've seen both of them out there. But now, like, I mean, he's obviously one of the lowest paid players right now in the league. For most of the season, I think he just dipped below it, but for most of the year, he was leading the NBA in three-point percentage, and he was also like at an all-time rate. Like that was going to be like the best ever for people that qualified. So I think that it's kind of crazy how far he's come, because I think in his first like 5-6 years, he only made like maybe a handful of threes, and then now it's like I don't know if you saw like that Clipper game, for example.
You're beating me to it.
Yeah, like the dude hit more threes in that one game than he hit his first like half decade of his career. So I mean that's just crazy. And he is kind of older, he's like 29 years old, but I don't know. I think it's still fine because like by the time this expires, he'll still be around 32, which I think for most players is roughly around their prime. And like how I feel like players nowadays, like they're kind of more conservative, maybe with their bodies and stuff. So they're more likely to play at a high level longer than maybe some of the players back then. So I think that he should be good. I mean, I don't think he'd have like a drastic fall off. If he did, it'd probably be like a big disappointment. But no, I don't know. What do you think about Valanciunas?
Yeah, so one of the things I look at, and you mentioned that Clipper game, I look at some of the best games that a person puts up as their ceiling. And I look at that Clipper game, 39 points and 15 rebounds, shooting 7 of 8 from 3. Now, is he going to do that every game? No. We look at his season stats, and it's well below the 18 and 12, but he's a consistent double-double. You talk about expanding the three-point shot. So, you kind of change the offense now, having a big man that can shoot the ball. We look at somebody like a DeAndre Ayton, who's a center that doesn't shoot threes, and it kind of limits the offense that they have around that. He's shooting 51.5% from the field this year. Just a very, very efficient player. And I think somebody that's kind of gone under the radar. I mean, look, we've seen that big men work in today's NBA. Like, you can win with a good big man. And I think he's someone for a team that might be looking to go all in. Maybe you give him a 4-year contract, worth $100 million, a little over $100 million, and he can give you some good years left. We're very good with pick and roll. He's over 7 foot, so once again, he's 7 foot, so can challenge on the defensive end as well. But very, very underpaid. Sticking with the big man theme, I guess big man just underpaid in this league, and we're going to go with Christian Wood, who is in the second year of a 3-year, $41 million contract. Now, it's interesting. The Rockets, they started out the year, with 1-16, right? Now they go win 7 in a row. And I mean, his stats, he's doing pretty well. 16.5 points per game, 11.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and over a block. Keep in mind, this is on a rebuilding team. They're not playing John Wall this year. I think they have the youngest team in the NBA besides the Thunder. They're obviously starting people like Jalen Green, and Şengün is getting some minutes, Kevin Porter Jr., but Christian Wood is still doing it. And props to the Rockets for giving him this contract. Garrett, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I think for one, he's a little underrated, like defensively. I feel like people look at his numbers and they're like, all right, he's decent, but like, I don't think people really realize how good he is defensively as well, for what he's credited for. And yeah, like his stats have probably taken a little bit of a dip from last year, but like you said, he's been the biggest reason they're on this 7-game win streak. And, the NBA is a weird league. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe this turns into something, to advance them and like jolt them up for this season, or maybe it's something to come like as early as next season or the year after, because I'm sure like 2 years ago, like when we were just talking about the Cavs, a lot of people probably didn't think they were going to be good anytime soon, because like LeBron had just recently left like a year prior. So it's like now with the Rockets, probably people are thinking, oh, they're almost never going to be good. But I don't know, like if they keep Christian Wood, he's only 26 years old, and he's been the best player on their team, like you said, like over this time. I think that they could be, one of those teams down the line. You still got other guys like Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green. We really haven't seen, much of him mixed with Christian Wood in terms of like working to a T. But I don't know. I think that if you get all these other guys involved, and maybe like Christian Wood, he could be like that primary option or secondary option down the line. So I think like the fact that he's making a roughly 13-14 million a year, I mean, that's kind of a steal if you ask me. But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't put all the numbers on these graphics. He's shooting over 35% from 3. And it's interesting. People just think that he's kind of been in the league recently. He started in 2015, 76ers, then the Hornets and the Bucks and the Pelicans. And then the Pistons.
He was on the process team.
Yeah. And I think people only kind of valued him on the Pistons as like, and this is a fantasy football term, but as a handcuff to Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond went down, and that's when he really started kind of getting some minutes because he played 62 games with the Pistons that year, 13 points, 6.3 rebounds. And, he showed some potential flashes. And I think, the Pistons were committed to Drummond having a $150 million contract, and the Rockets rolled the dice. Last year, he averaged, career high 21 points per game. And I think it's funny because, after a win, they're doing a post-game interview with TNT, and, Shaq goes and he's like, I apologize, Christian Wood. I didn't know your game. He's like, yeah, you're casual. I was like, I like that. It's a little bit of a spark you want from your leader. And I mean, well, like we said, 13-14 million a year for a guy this year that's averaging a double-double and can shoot the 3. I think that's pretty valuable.
And I was just going to say, and one could even argue like last year, because like with the shortened season and like how the All-Star game was kind of like earlier in the year, like I don't know if you remember, like he went down like with an injury before All-Star break. So he very well could have been an All-Star. The Rockets, yeah, they were up and down last season, but at the start of the year, like they weren't that bad. Like I think when they just got Oladipo in that trade, they went on like a win streak. So
And then
who
they lost
knows?
20. And then they lost 20 in a row.
Yeah, and
The
then like
Rockets, they either win 7 in a row or they lose 20. There's no in between.
yeah, it's one way or another. But still, I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
We're sticking with not the big men. We're going to the guards. We got a couple left. We got Alex Caruso. And this is
Oh
this
yeah.
is one of Garrett's favorites right here. He's the one that brought up this idea. So Alex Caruso, this offseason with the Bulls, they're kind of going all in. They trade for DeRozan. They now have Vucevic for a full year, and they dole out some money. And Alex Caruso is one of those beneficiaries. So he signed a 4-year, $47 million contract. He's in the first year of that. Now you look at his stats, and the stats don't say it all. Now he obviously contributes in multi categories. 8.5 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, which is very good for a guard, especially coming off the bench. 4.1 assists, and he leads the league with 2.2 steals per game. Gritty guy. Garrett, this is your guy right here. So I'm going to just let you take the floor. I'm going to take a step back, put my feet up, and you tell me why he's worth that contract and more.
Well, I think for one is that like see people like when he was with the Lakers, I feel like they only recognized him as maybe like a meme and like someone that was just like a popular name because the All-Star voting. But really he's better than that. Like for one, I'd argue that he's one of arguably maybe the best guard defender in the NBA. He puts a lot of pressure on some of the best ball handlers in the league. I would even say I trust Lonzo defensively as well, but I would probably even take Caruso over him personally for defense. And then also like the fact that it's not just that, but he also brings the energy that we need. I mean, he's only missed one game this year. It was against the Indiana Pacers, who are looking toward a rebuild. They're one of the most dysfunctional teams in the league right now. And we lost by like 30 to them. So, I mean, that probably says just about as much as you need to know about like his impact, like around the rest of the team. But I mean, other than that, he's like a plus like 120, I think, on the season in terms of plus minus. He's one of the best facilitators on the team. And I was checking a few days ago, he's in the 95th percentile as a cutter. Like, I think it's important that like
that's a great stat.
Yeah, like he's moving really well off the ball as well. So, and I think that also helps like our offense get going, especially since sometimes, and I trust guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and maybe this could be a fault on Billy Donovan, but maybe he relies too much on those guys to create stuff down the stretch. But a guy like Caruso, if he's moving off the ball more, then it makes the defense move more, creates open shots, and then there's that. I mean, the guy's only like 27 years old. So, I mean, the fact that he's on a 4-year deal, every year getting about 8-9 million, I think that's a steal personally, because I think that he's probably been one of our top 5 players on the whole team this year. And I think he ranks 150th for players like this season in salary, which I think that he's been better than that. But I don't know, like, what do you think?
Yes, I mean, you obviously have the Bulls breakdown, and as a fan, I think you're honest when players don't live up to their contract, and you say, okay, yeah, this is a steal. And once again, we're not showing all the stats on here. He takes 6.4 field goal attempts per game. Now, I think in the league like the NBA, it's a lot of ego driven. People want to get their shots if they want to, have the highlights. Now, Caruso knows his role, and he's a defensive stopper. He's kind of like a young Patrick Beverley, where he contributes in multi categories. And he's not, the biggest scorer, but he's someone that does a lot of the dirty work. I look at his assist to turnover per ratio, so 4.1 assists to 1.5 turnovers. So he's efficient when he's on the court. He's averaging 28.6 minutes per game, and the highest he's played in this is prior to this season is 21. So he has a lot of energy in those legs, like you said. And if you watch the game, he's relentless. Like, I forgot what game I was watching. Somebody shoots a ball. He blocks it, and then rather than letting them try to get an attempt, he just goes with his hands up, and he ends up getting a block, and it's a shot clock violation. And it's like sometimes, when there's 0.4 seconds, that's still enough to get a shot off. People will sometimes lay back, but until the whistle blows or until the possession is over, he plays till the end of that. And that's something that you can't teach. You can try and coach in players, but it's really instilled in how you play the game. And I think what we're seeing, the Lakers right now, they're 13-13. They miss someone like that because they're the oldest team in the NBA. And he did a lot of the things that were under the radar, but he wasn't just that high profile guy.
Well, the Lakers, I mean, they miss a lot right now.
That's a
You know
whole
it.
nother video. That's a
Yeah,
whole nother video,
you
baby.
you know it from the guys that they got on your Wizards now. But yeah, and I will say that he is similar to Patrick Beverley. I'd say probably less of a menace
Yeah.
to society. But yeah, I think that comparison is valid.
So the last guy we got here, and this is actually a guy that might get traded. So talk about that team. And it's Domantas Sabonis, who is funny because, when Paul George got traded to the Thunder, everybody thought they won. But I think the Pacers were the long-term winners. So 4 years, $74.9 million contract. He's in the second year. That's very, very team-friendly. And you look at his stats, 18 points per game, 12 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 1.1 steals. Now, I don't think that says it all because you look at the numbers, 4.1 assists. He's a great passer. Probably one of the best passing big men that we have here. He can shoot the three. He spaces the floor well. He's a lefty, which I think is undervalued. And it's interesting because the Pacers have good pieces. They have him. They have Miles Turner on an affordable contract. They have Malcolm Brogdon. They have Karis LeVert. And they just don't seem to mesh well. But I don't think anybody's going to argue that Domantas Sabonis isn't an undervalued player or the contract isn't great. He comes from a basketball family. He's pretty young as well. I'll have to check up his age. Well, I give that to you, Garrett. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I got his age right here. He's 25 right now.
Okay, so
which
really young.
It's kind of interesting because it's like it almost feels like he's been in the league longer than like Christian Wood, for example. Yeah. But like the dude's still really young. He's 63rd on the payrolls this season, so that's kind of surprising because I feel like I feel like he's not the guy you think of like as a superstar, but I mean he's probably like all-star caliber, maybe fringe all-star. So he should be at least a top 50 player in the NBA. So he's definitely being underpaid to some extent. And the Pacers, they've been a lot better with him on the floor. In fact, they're actually, I believe, outscoring their opponents when he's on the floor, even though they're like a terrible record right now. They're dysfunctional as can be. So, yeah, and I think that he's one of the most skilled bigs in the NBA as well. I think, honestly, like just that whole Pacers team as a whole, they got a lot of underrated players. It's just the fact that like they just can't put it together and they just can't close out games. Sabonis is like one of the more underrated players in the league, though, for the simple fact that like I've seen a lot of people say he's overrated lately, and that's like weird. But no, I feel like him getting about roughly 18, 19 million a year, that's a steal. He's probably not going to sign again until he's like 28. So to have that many years with him on that contract is pretty good. And especially if they want to trade, someone like him, or even I think Brogdon's contract is pretty friendly. Like if they wanted to move in a different direction, then they would easily be able to do so. I think it would be easier than a guy like, Ben Simmons or Kyrie Irving, who are kind of like holding out. But it's like this guy's producing, and he's producing at a high level right now, and he's young, and he's getting paid like less than a top 50 player in the league. So I don't know. I think that's all that considered, like it's definitely one of the better contracts in the NBA.
And the thing is, he's consistent. I mean, he's an 18-12 this year, but he was 20-12 last year. He was 18-12 the year before that. So it's not like, we talk about the Christian Woods where it's like, oh, he did this recently the last couple of years. Like he's been doing this consistently. He's 25 years old. He's expanded his game. I would like to see his defense get a little bit better. I think that's kind of why they have Miles Turner as like the enforcer of the paint. I think he leads the NBA in blocks this year. So Garrett, we talked about 6 guys this show. Who has the best contract?
I think the best contract. I'm looking through. I'm probably gonna have to say it's. I'm really torn right now between Jarrett Allen and Alex Caruso. I feel like maybe. I love Caruso, but I'm gonna probably have to say Jarrett Allen for the simple fact that he's the youngest player that we just covered. He's on the longest deal, and $20 million. I mean, a decade ago, that would seem like a lot of money. I'm pretty sure only a few people had $20 million per year. like around 2011, 2010. So the fact that he's getting this though now when players are starting to get like 40, 50 and like super max contracts, I think that that's definitely a steal. He's probably going to be, don't quote me on this, but he's probably going to be an all-star this year, especially if the Cavs keep playing at this level. But yeah, I don't know. Who do you think has the best contract?
I mean, easy for me to say Jarrett Allen, and I'm not going to continue to beat that drum. Everybody knows I'm a Jarrett Allen stan, and if they didn't, then they know at the end of this video. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to say Christian Wood. Now, obviously, the contract is one thing, but kind of the context for me. So Houston, before they go on the 7-game win streak, we don't know if they're rebuilding or not. So Christian Wood, not only is he talented based on the stats of 16, 11, 2.3, but he also has a team-friendly contract. So I feel like that gives the Rockets the ultimate leverage because not only can you trade a good player, but it's not going to eat the salary books. So I feel like for a team that might be trying to go for it all, that might be like one piece away. And I can't really think right now, maybe like Boston or Utah or, I'm trying to think of teams that might really want to do that. Let's say OKC decides to make him a centerpiece. You can probably get a bigger haul for him. And as opposed to Jarrett Allen, where he's going to stay in Cleveland, Dejounte Murray is going to stay. Jonas Valanciunas will probably sign as a free agent if he's not traded. Caruso is going to stay, and Domantas Sabonis might get traded, but he has a little bit of a higher contract. Christian Woods is fairly reasonable, and he's young, as we mentioned. He's 25 years old. He's a big man that can shoot the three. So I think that's what makes it the best, is just because it's so expendable and it's so flexible with a team that might want to take that on. But we appreciate. Yeah. I'm sorry. Hey, give your thoughts on that.
No. I mean, I kind of agree with just about everything you said, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I picked him. But yeah, I think. See, I was not high on the Cavs like this year. I thought like when they got off to a great start, I thought like it's just gonna be like last year because like they got off to a hot start again, the last season. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's just gonna be like they're gonna fall down to reality, but. I don't know. They're still hanging in there. They're doing pretty well. And it's not like they're even 100% healthy right now. Like they're missing Colin Sexton. They've been missing Mobley for some games. I know he just recently got back, but
Lauri Markkanen might be missing some time.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah,
that's a whole different story right
there.
Yeah,
that's a whole different thing. And that's why I'm surprised he's still not on my Bulls because it just seems like that's our luck this year. But I don't know. I think that, Jarrett Allen, he's been pretty dang good this year.
Yeah. And to be honest, you can't go wrong with any of these. And, we look at the NBA and, you have bad contracts, you have good contracts. And I think that's really what separates the GMs apart is taking gambles, paying guys their, before they go market value. And you can look back and say that's a good deal. We appreciate everybody that tuned in on this one. Leave us a comment. Who do you think has the best contract? Is it one of these guys? Did we miss it somewhere else? Make sure you check out the Triple Play YouTube channel as well as Garrett's channel at Super Mario Hoops 24. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Stay tuned.